Hey, everybody out there in podcast land. Welcome to the latest episode of Sports Frenzy 2.0. Better late than never. If you haven't checked out our bonus episode from yesterday, November the 30th, concert obligations screwed up our taping schedule. So you're getting this a little bit later than normal. December the 1st, 2022. I'm the Maestro, Kevin Crane, flying solo for the last time. Holidays and the concert last night. Steel Panther, by the way, fantastic. We will have a review of that for you next week on the weekend edition. But for now, you're stuck with me on an abbreviated, shorter Sports Frenzy 2.0. But some things never change. We start off, as always, with the NFL this time of year. First thing, let's look back at Week 12, which of course included Thanksgiving games. I hope your family, your friends had fantastic Thanksgiving, holiday weekends, Black Friday, all that good stuff. We had 3 really good games. For once, a rarity on Thanksgiving. You've got to admire the plucky Detroit Lions. They still cannot figure out a way to win the majority of their games, but at least this current squad is competitive. They lose to the mighty Buffalo Bills 28-25 at Ford Field. The first game, of course, of 3 on Thanksgiving. The Lions play close, tight games. I'll give them that. They've just got to get over the hump. They've got to find that next level and start winning more of these games. That being said, the Bills barely eking out a 28-25 win in Detroit. What does that say about them? It looks like the elbow issue with Josh Allen was much ado about nothing. It looks like he's okay. Just needed a little bit of time, a little bit of rest. He's starting to make more of the throws that we would expect from him. They have got a big test tonight, which we'll get to here in a little bit when we make our picks for NFL Week 13. Middle game on Thanksgiving, the 24th of November. Giants at the Cowboys. We're starting to see, I believe, more so who the Giants really are than who the Cowboys really are. Dallas ends up winning 28-20 in Arlington at AT&T Stadium. There's only so much magic, only so much when it comes to smoke and mirrors that Brian Daboll can do with this New York Giants team. Daniel Jones is not a top-level quarterback. Saquon Barkley is starting to wear down. They don't have any receivers. The defense is mediocre at best, especially given injuries in the secondary. The fact that they were able to hang in and keep it somewhat close is a testament to the fact that they have finally got the right head coach. He just needs a year or two to start bringing in the players that he wants. As far as the Cowboys go, winning 28-20, Dak Prescott still doesn't seem to be able to elevate to that top tier level of quarterbacks. The 1-2 punch of Zeke Elliott and Tony Pollard now looks a little bit more hit and miss than it did a few weeks ago. In a weak NFC, I do think the Dallas Cowboys are going to pose a challenge, pose a threat to anybody, whether it's Philadelphia, whether it's the San Francisco 49ers or the Minnesota Vikings. We've already seen what the Cowboys did a few weeks ago to the Vikings. The NFC is going to be a free-for-all because it is weak compared to the AFC. I could probably take the third or fourth seed in the AFC right now, put them in the NFC, and they would blow the doors off of just about anybody. Maybe Philadelphia, maybe the 49ers put up a fight. But seriously, think about it. I take Cincinnati, I drop them into the NFC. They're better than every single team out there. So we'll see what happens with the Cowboys. I still think they're a wild card. They're not going to catch Philadelphia. Have to say this, though. I alluded to this on the bonus episode yesterday. The NFL is king. You can shove the World Cup down our throats all you want. American football is king in America. College, pros. The Giants-Cowboys game on Thanksgiving Day brought in a record 42 million viewers. That is a staggering number. Now, Roger Goodell, some people hate him. I happen to think he's doing a great job. I think numbers like this bear it out. He's got to be very careful, though. He's got to walk the tightrope here to keep this cash cow rolling, to keep everything moving forward, to keep these numbers going up and up and up. 42 million for the Giants and the Cowboys. Unbelievable. And then finally, the late game on Thanksgiving was the Patriots at the Vikings. I know the Vikings have a fantastic record. But as I just mentioned with the NFC, it is weak. And I think the record of the Vikings with only 2 losses is very deceptive, especially given how they got their doors blown off by the Cowboys. And in this particular game, how they made Mac Jones look like Dan Marino. The Vikings did end up winning 33-26. There was a controversial overturn of a Hunter Henry touchdown catch. I thought it was the right call. I didn't have any stake in this game, one way or the other. I didn't care. But technically, the ball moved. The process of completing the catch did not occur. A lot of people don't like it. A lot of people thought the touchdown for the Patriots should have stood, could have changed the entire complexion of the game. I thought it was a good call. They showed the replays ad nauseum, and you could see the ball move. So what are we to make of these two teams? Again, the Vikings, I think, are a little bit of a sham. I don't think they're nearly as good as their record indicates. We know the legend of Kirk Cousins. We know he cannot win games on a big stage. Now, some people say, whoa, look at this. National audience, Thursday night on Thanksgiving, he won the game. He played well. He's got to do it multiple times for me to buy in. And the defense is awful. The Vikings have the worst pass defense in the NFL, not just the NFC, the NFL. You are not going anywhere in the playoffs when you have the worst ranked pass defense in the NFL. They made Mac Jones again look like Dan Marino. Now we'll see how Mac Jones looks tonight at home against a depleted Bills defense. That will be the true test to say, has Mac Jones got himself back in some semblance to the positive form he had in his rookie season last year? Now the game's on Sunday, of course. I told you kids I was worried about the Buccaneers going into Cleveland to play the Browns. Jacoby Brissett's last hurrah as quarterback before Deshaun Watson comes back into the fold on the road at Houston. And we'll talk more about that in a few minutes. There's just something wrong with the Buccaneers, and I've said it week after week after week after week. It is the head coach. Todd Bowles is such a massive downgrade from Bruce Arians. Byron Leftwich should have been given this job. Todd Bowles is not a good head coach. Ask New York Jets fans. The Buccaneers should not be this mediocre. The NFC South is a train wreck. All teams under 500. 11 games into the season. Of course, some 12 games. The Buccaneers could end up winning this division with a 9-8 or an 8-9 record and win it by multiple games. That's how bad the Saints, the Panthers, and the Falcons are. And the fact that the Bucs could not win this game in Cleveland tells me that even if they win in the legend of Tom Brady, they go into the playoffs. Right now, they've got a healthy Chris Godwin. They've got a healthy Mike Evans. The running game's in flux. That's been a big problem as well. The running game has been terrible this year. And, of course, Leonard Fournette is now dinged up. There's just something wrong with this Bucs team. But, of course, that's a common theme right now in the NFC because we've seen what's happened with the Rams. They're a mess. They've pretty much decided to mail it in now. Aaron Donald out this week in their game against the Seahawks at home. Matthew Stafford might not play again this year. They've already lost Cooper Kupp, their number one receiver. Now they've lost their number two receiver, the unbelievably disappointing Allen Robinson. The Rams have nothing left in the tank. The interesting thing about this, of course, is the worse they do, somebody else is getting that pick. Because remember, their GM at the Super Bowl parade last year, their owner, the GM, everybody was celebrating how they won their Super Bowl championship, and they were saying, fuck those draft picks. Fuck those draft picks. Well, they gave them all away now, so You can suck all you want. That's not your pick anymore. The Rams, their fans, okay, you got the Super Bowl. Nobody's going to argue with the fact that that is not a fantastic achievement. Well worth selling your soul, some would say. But the Rams are done, officially done. They are not coming back from the deep, dark hole they dug for themselves. This year was supposed to be the year. They thought they had a window where they had 1 or 2 more years to build upon the success of the Super Bowl. That has been completely and totally derailed. Great game between two contenders for the AFC crown. Bengals go into Tennessee, beat the Titans 20-16. Usually, the runner-up in the Super Bowl is the team that has the precipitous drop-off the following year. We just talked about the Rams, the champions, and how they're the ones that are cratering. The Bengals look good. The Bengals look smart. The Bengals look solid. They beat the Titans without Joe Mixon, without Jamar Chase. They have got so much depth on the offensive side of the ball with Samaje Perine. You got T. Higgins. You got Tyler Boyd. These are hits with Mixon, with Chase. They can withstand, and they proved it this past weekend. The Jets, of course, destroyed the Bears, but the big news for that game was, number one, the Bears quarterback situation was a joke. Of course, Justin Fields was hurt. But at the last minute, we were told the backup, Trevor Siemian, was going to be out with an oblique. So we were looking at Nathan Peterman starting against the Jets. It turned out Siemian was good to go, played well for about a quarter, and that was it. The Mike White legend with the Jets has been revived because a spoiled brat, rich kid, as Booger McFarland said on ESPN. Zach Wilson gets deactivated completely. The number 2 overall pick in last year's draft couldn't even suit up, not because of injury, because of ineptitude. The Commanders keep rolling, much to the chagrin of the NFL. The most hated owner in the league, Dan Snyder, his team has turned it around behind Ron Rivera and Taylor Heineke. They beat the Falcons. The Broncos are, of course, an absolute disaster. It keeps going each and every week. The offensive ineptitude with Russell Wilson. Has he lost the locker room? Is Nathaniel Hackett going to get fired after 1 year as they go into Carolina, basically with the third-string quarterback? Sam Darnold steps in, and they beat the Broncos in Carolina 23-10. Chargers pull out a close victory in Arizona against the Cardinals 25-24 to keep their playoff hopes alive. 2 coaches who do not impress anybody, Brandon Staley and Cliff Kingsbury. Staley ends up getting the better of this, and the Cardinals, with all the money they've committed to Cliff Kingsbury, to their quarterback, Kyler Murray, they are a mess on the level of the Broncos. Then finally on Monday night, the bloom is off the rose for Jeff Saturday. After his initial win as a head coach, mismanages the clock at the end of the game at home against the Steelers. They end up losing 24-17. Did he own it? Yes. And nobody's going to say Jeff Saturday doesn't seem like he's a decent guy. He's a football guy. He knows what he's doing. But I applauded the fact that Irsay, the owner, was thinking outside the box. Why not? But it doesn't look like it's not going to be the absolute nuclear fallout disaster that everybody wanted it to be. It's just not going to end up working out. All right, so let's move on to our NFL picks for Week 13. We've talked about the big game tonight, December the 1st. The Bills going into Foxborough to play Bill Belichick's Patriots. Playoff implications abound. The Patriots have got to win this game. But the Bills do too, because the Bills were the front runners, the preseason darlings, to not only get to the Super Bowl, but to win the whole thing. And they have not lived up to the hype. We mentioned previously, it looks like Josh Allen's elbow is okay, but the injuries to Von Miller on the defense, along with other players going down. There is an illness running through the Bills camp as of Monday. That being said, the point spread has come down from 4.5 down to 2.5. People are starting to lose faith a little bit, especially with all of the injuries and the other ancillary issues with the Bills, starting to lose a little bit of faith in Buffalo being able to go into Foxborough and beat a healthy Patriots team that has looked pretty good as of late. We talked about their performance against the Vikings Thanksgiving night. That being said, I can't pick against the Bills. They were my pick to win the entire thing this year, the AFC, the Super Bowl. I still think they're the better team. They don't have the better coach, of course. But all 8 of our panelists have their picks in since we're taping here a little bit late. 7 of the 8 of us are taking Buffalo. Of course, all picks are picked straight up, not considering the point spreads. The Conquistador is the lone dissenter. He thinks Bill Belichick in a must-win situation will come through. Dave's taking the Patriots. Everybody else takes the Bills. Moving on to Sunday, December the 4th. I picked the Steelers to beat the Colts in Indianapolis. Now they go into Atlanta to play the Falcons. We talked about the mess that is the NFC South. The Falcons still very much alive. But one of my mantras for this season has been, I don't trust Marcus Mariota. And right now I trust Mike Tomlin and I trust Kenny Pickett, who has stopped turning the ball over in his rookie year a lot more than I do anything the Falcons have got to offer. Kyle Pitts out for the year. Very limited weapons for the Falcons. Arthur Smith is doing the best he can with this team. I like the way the Steelers are playing right now. Again, as I said, I picked them last week to beat the Colts on the road. I will pick the Steelers to beat the Falcons on the road this week. Dave is with me. So is Bill. The other 5 panelists all stick with the home team and go with the Falcons. The longest running rivalry in the NFL, of course, is the Packers and the Bears. So Green Bay comes into Soldier Field this week to play Chicago. Now, the Packers have had their own difficulties this year. pretty much on the verge of being eliminated. Aaron Rodgers is talking about running the table. I don't see that happening with the way they've been playing. He's dinged up, of course. He's been suffering through a broken right thumb. Gets knocked out of last week's game with a rib or an oblique injury. But now the Packers are saying that he is okay. He will play against the Bears this coming Sunday. A conundrum for them because, of course, the front office wants to see what they've got in Jordan Love as it's coming time to make a decision whether to exercise a fifth-year option on him, whether to consider extending him, whether to consider trading Aaron Rodgers. If they trade Aaron Rodgers after, I believe, the beginning of June in 2023, much less of a significant dead cap hit. If they trade him in the offseason before June, we're talking about a $99 million dead cap number. That's not going to happen. The Packers are not going to do that. I believe if they trade him after the beginning of June, that number drops significantly under $20 million, more doable, especially if they start to see glimmers of hope from Jordan Love. Now, today, December the 1st, as we tape, word has come out that Aaron Rodgers is trying to finally act like the good soldier, not being an immature, petulant brat, saying that he would consider it and listen to it if the Packers wanted to shut him down and let Jordan Love play the rest of the season. But, of course, for Bears fans, that doesn't mean this week, because Aaron Rodgers revels in the fact that, of course, he owns the Bears. Now, if the Bears are smart, which, of course, we all know they're not, they would sit Justin Fields, let his non-throwing shoulder injury heal up. They've got a bye week coming up after the Packers game. I know they don't want to slow down the momentum from the last month and a half, but you've got to think long term. He's taken the necessary steps to show that he could be a viable long-term option at quarterback. Let Aaron Rodgers gloat for another year. We'll see you in 2023. Hopefully, Poles in the front office will be able to restock this team with all of the roster spots, the draft picks, the cap room they're going to have. And the Bears can take a leap next year and surpass the Green Bay Packers. But for this week, I would have picked the Packers even if Jordan Love was playing. Could still happen. Again, right now it's up in the air. Could be Jordan Love versus Justin Fields. Could be Aaron Rodgers versus Justin Fields. Could be Aaron Rodgers versus Nathan Peterman. Who knows? Everybody on the panel taking the Packers except for Jen. She's taking the Bears. Jaguars at the Lions. Jaguars coming off an extremely impressive victory over the Baltimore Ravens. You're starting to see some cracks in the Ravens. Lamar Jackson, the contract pressure might be getting to him. He had a very, very obscene online exchange where my understanding is John Harbaugh had to call him in, to rein him in, to calm him down. I have said I would not give Lamar Jackson a massive long-term deal. They're stuck, though. And I'm not saying I don't like Lamar Jackson as a quarterback. I do. I don't love him. But the problem is with the NFL right now, it's either all or nothing. You pay your quarterback $40 million or you pay him nothing. This is why everybody looks to draft a young quarterback, because you get him for 4 or 5 years, relatively cheap. In the case of Joe Burrow or Justin Herbert, they know. The Bengals and the Chargers, respectively, know they'll be able to justify paying those guys $40 million a year here within the next year or so. I don't think the Ravens feel that way about Lamar Jackson. Marquise Brown, of course, wanted out, goes to the Cardinals. Not that much better of a situation. But what does that tell you? That he would be more than happy to play under Kyler Murray than he would under Lamar Jackson, because Lamar Jackson does not instill confidence when it comes to a dynamic passing game. But again, he brings a lot of other things to the table. It's a tough situation for the Ravens. If there was a middle ground, Lamar Jackson, to me, I'd pay him $25 million a year for the next 4 years. But they won't settle for that. They see what, the stupidity in Cleveland giving Deshaun Watson all that guaranteed money. We'll get to him in a second. And then the Kyler Murray deal and the Russell Wilson deal. And of course, Lamar Jackson's going to say, I know I'm better than Kyler Murray. I know I'm better than Russell Wilson at this point in his career. I deserve that money. And the Ravens, smart front office that they have, are sitting there going, no. This is why they're just stringing this along. Eventually, though, there's going to have to be a tough decision made. Going back, of course, to the Jaguars at the Lions, so of course, Jacksonville at home beats the Ravens. Trevor Lawrence might have had his best game as a pro. Travis Etienne goes down, but JaMychal Hasty stepped in, had a great game. Now they go into Detroit to play the Lions, who we talked about earlier, and how they get so close. They play a close game each and every week. Most of the time they lose. Every now and then they win. I think they win this game. You're starting to see a little bit of pride, a little bit of confidence from the Lions. 6 of our 8 panelists agree with me. Doug and Aaron are the dissenters on this one. They are going with Jacksonville. And there's reason to believe in both these teams right now. So they're both looking like maybe they're growing under their head coaches. Maybe they're getting better. Jets at the Vikings. Our panelists do not believe in the Mike White phenomena. Now, the Jets have a great, great defense, and we talked about how awful the Vikings defense is. Can the Jets shut down Justin Jefferson and Dalvin Cook and TJ Hawkinson and Adam Thielen? Can Mike White tear up this porous Minnesota secondary? Like I said, our panelists aren't buying it for at least this week. We all stick with the Vikings. All 8 of us are taking Minnesota. Another game that maybe at the beginning of the year we would never have thought would have huge playoff implications, but it does. The Commanders going in to play the Giants at MetLife Stadium. Giants are reeling a little bit. Commanders are on a roll with Tyler Heineke, as we've talked about. Do the Commanders bring Bryce Young back to make that good defense even better? Now, the turf at MetLife has taken down a lot of guys this year. Just ask the Bears after last weekend's game against the Jets, where they lost Eddie Jackson and Darnell Mooney, both for the season, most likely. Do you dare bring Bryce Young back coming off a leg injury? to play on that awful turf. Again, like we talked about with the Bears being smart with Justin Fields, the Commanders should be smart with Bryce Young, hold him out another week, because I think they are good enough with the way they're playing to beat the Giants in New York or New Jersey. Dave, Sam, Bill, and Jen agree with me. We all go with the Commanders. Nick, Doug, and Aaron go with the Giants. And this is going to be a good game. It's going to be a close game. I thought about taking the Giants again because I think Brian Daboll is such a good head coach, but I think the Commanders right now are the better team overall. Titans at the Eagles. You have got, in my opinion, polar opposites when it comes to offense. Defense is similar, polar opposite offenses. Now, the thing you've got to consider is, we just talked about the Commanders. They were the one team to beat the Eagles this year. How did they do it? Ball control, running the football, short, safe passes, keep the ball away from Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown and Miles Sanders. The Titans are well equipped to run that same game plan, of course, with Derrick Henry against the Eagles. I think Nick Sirianni and that team, they're smart enough to know we have to adjust. Everybody's thinking ball control again, Derrick Henry, first down, second down, third down, 4 yards, 4 yards, 4 yards, first down, and just keep it rolling with the occasional play action pass. The Eagles will figure it out. 7 of our 8 panelists agree with me. Philadelphia for everybody but Aaron, who goes with the Titans. And I do admire Mike Vrabel and the coaching job he has done with this team year in and year out. But it's just such a limited team. You can't rely on Derrick Henry to carry the load week in and week out. Now, of course, the big game when it comes to headlines for this week. Really, the only reason I put it on the slate, it's really not a close game in terms of picking. Cleveland Browns going down to Houston to play the Texans. We all know why this game is garnering all the headlines, even though it's really a game between one team that is the worst in football in the Texans and another team that is barely clinging to life in a very tough AFC playoff picture. And that's because Deshaun Watson returns to the NFL. I still have not heard final confirmation that he's going to start this game, but I would assume he would. It's a revenge game. Who is it a revenge game for? Is it a revenge game for Deshaun Watson? Is it a revenge game for the Texans? Now, the Texans are so bad that Deshaun Watson can play in this game, be rusty as all hell, and they could probably still win by 2 touchdowns. Is there that little bit of vengeance, of retribution running through the blood of some of the players, the front office with Houston? Now, of course, our panelists, all 8 of us, taking Cleveland. But wouldn't it be awesome if the Texans somehow figured out a way to win this game? Now, supposedly, I believe 10 of the women who have accused Deshaun Watson of sexual abuse from the massage debacle Supposedly they're all going to be at this game. Very rarely do you see a game like this when you've got Chiefs at Bengals, Dolphins at 49ers, which we'll get to in a second, Commanders at Giants, Jets at Vikings, games that legitimately have playoff implications. When you see a train wreck of a game on paper like the Browns at the Texans taking all the headlines. Seahawks at the Rams. We talked about all the problems the Rams are having with injuries. I mentioned Aaron Donald not playing in this game, which I think seals the deal on the road for the Seahawks. Probably no Matt Stafford. This is going to only help Geno Smith's cause, becoming comeback player of the year. Seahawks, for 6 of our 8 panelists, Jen and Doug, believe at SoFi Stadium, the home team, the Rams, will win. I don't see it happening. We mentioned the 2 big games being overshadowed by the Browns-Texans game because of all the wrong reasons. The right reasons are these next 2 games are phenomenal. The Dolphins, Miami goes to the West Coast to play the San Francisco 49ers. In my opinion, 2 easy playoff teams. They'll make it in. They will make it in. Unless there's a devastating injury. I was not that impressed with the 49ers last week. They beat the Saints. The defense looked great. They shut the Saints out, but they could only put up 13 points against New Orleans. That's not going to work this week against the Dolphins. Now, that offense for the Dolphins, of course, dynamic with Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill. Ironically, they're going to be running Jeff Wilson Jr. against the team he was just with a couple months ago. And that 49ers backfield is now thin with Elijah Mitchell going down again. So you've got the China doll back there, Christian McCaffrey, who could go down at any minute. And then they have nobody in that backfield to turn to. Deebo Samuel's dinged up. That being said, I think the 49ers at home and that defense will figure out a way to win a close game. It's about time Tua lost a game. Tua this year needs to lose a game. It would probably be the best thing for the Dolphins to bring him back down to earth. I'm not saying he's arrogant. I'm not saying he's cocky. But there were times when you've got to lose that game earlier rather than later. You don't want to lose the momentum going into the playoffs. You'd rather take a ding on a road game on the West Coast right now than lose at the end of December. So I take the 49ers, the defense, to dominate, to keep everybody in check for the Dolphins. 5 of the 8 panelists in total are taking San Francisco. Jen, Nick, and Doug take the Dolphins. Chiefs at Bengals. I think we're all drinking a little bit too much of the Kansas City Chiefs Kool-Aid. Now, when I say that, what I mean is, number one, spoiler alert, all 8 of our panelists are taking the Chiefs in Cincinnati playing the Bengals. We've heard revenge game. Kansas City wants to get even for last year losing in the playoffs to the Bengals. Jamar Chase looks like he might play in this game. Huge factor. The Bengals know They're going to have to outscore Pat Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. Different look in the backfield. No Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He's out for the year. Now it's Isaiah Pacheco, who brings a different dynamic. Fast, quick out of the backfield, but not much of a factor in the passing game. Who's going to be the one to step up outside of Travis Kelce? Patrick Mahomes always seems to find somebody, whether it's Juju, whether it's Mecole Hardman, whether it's Kadarius Toney, depending on who's healthy, depending on who's actually playing. The Chiefs always seem to find a way. Now, if the Bengals win this game, it will be a massive, massive step forward for them. I think this victory, if they could pull it off, could push them easily into winning the AFC North, getting past the Ravens, setting themselves up for a top seed when it comes time for the AFC playoffs. Until I see something with the Chiefs that leads me to believe otherwise, they've moved up into the number one slot. They are the front runners now, ahead of the Bills, ahead of the Bengals. And as I mentioned, everybody on the panel takes the Chiefs. Chargers at the Raiders. Chargers clinging to their playoff hopes and life. You guys know, I just don't like Brandon Staley as a head coach. He thinks he's got massive big balls, always going for it on fourth down, always trying to show everybody how big and tough he is with his team. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it fails miserably. The Raiders have finally, possibly, maybe figured things out under Josh McDaniels. I give credit to another Josh, a guy who now we've got to start looking at, in my opinion, as the MVP of the league. He'll never get it because it always goes to a quarterback, but Josh Jacobs, after that unbelievable performance last week in overtime when they beat the Seahawks. Fantasy owners know what I'm talking about. Arguably the best fantasy game of the year. Josh Jacobs, foolish on the part of the Las Vegas front office to not extend him. He will be a free agent unless he gets franchise tagged. He's going to make a lot of money based on what he's doing this year. Little bit dinged up. Looks like he's going to play this week. That Chargers defense not nearly as good as we thought it was going to be when they brought in Khalil Mack from the Bears. I'm going with the Raiders. Bill and Jen are with me. The other 5 panelists go with the LA Chargers. Then finally, Monday night, December the 5th, take this game for what you will. Again, the weak NFC South. The Saints in recent years have had the Buccaneers' number. Bucks did not look good on the road in Cleveland. Saints, of course, did not look good. Shutout against the 49ers last weekend. Nobody's got momentum. Nobody's really got any good mojo going for them here in this game. I think Dennis Allen might be a one and done as a head coach with the Saints. I'll go with the GOAT. I'll go with Tom Brady. At home, they'll figure out a way to win, get back to 500, keep the lead in the putrid NFC South. All right, that's going to do it for the NFL segment. Next up, college football, as always, in our second segment. The rest of the show is probably going to go by pretty quickly. So be prepared for jumping from topic to topic, port to port. We do have a couple moments of silence and a couple Red Foreman dumbasses for you. But next up, NCAA football. I will be right back.
Greetings, sports fans. Listen to the screaming geniuses of Sports Frenzy 2.0 every Thursday as they bring you the thrill of victory and the agony of stupidity on Spotify, Anchor, Google, Radio Public, Pocket Cast, Breaker, Apple, Overcast, and Castbox. And check out the Facebook page, Sports Frenzy 2.0.
Hey, everybody, welcome back to Sports Frenzy 2.0, taping here on December the 1st, 2022. A little later than normal. Thanks to Steel Panther and their awesome, raunchy show from last night, which caused the taping delay. Full review of that show on the weekend edition next Saturday. Flying solo this week, I am the Maestro, Kevin Crane. Time to move on to college football. But first, as always, we remind you, yes, you found us somewhere, but you have options. You can always find us on Spotify, Anchor, Google, Radio Public, Pocket Casts, Apple, Overcast, Castbox, Stitcher, Amazon, and Audible. And as always, check out the Facebook page where you will get a complete breakdown each and every week of our panels, NFL and NCAA football picks. When NASCAR is in season, each and every weekend you will get our picks for all the races. All right. Getting down to the nitty-gritty with the NCAA football season. Technically, the regular season is over. We are heading into championship weekend. Your college football playoff rankings. Georgia, Michigan, TCU, and USC, as it should be. Now, of course, if everybody holds serve in their championship games, all four of those teams are playing this coming Saturday and Friday. If you're in the Pac-12, if all four of those teams win, should be a done deal. Those are your four teams participating for the title. But what happens if USC loses to Utah? What happens if Kansas State beats TCU? Those are the two most likely scenarios. Michigan loses to Purdue. Still going to be hard to keep them out of the top four. Same for Georgia if they were to stumble to Brian Kelly's LSU Tigers. Now, what set everything up last weekend? Michigan beats Ohio State handily in the second half on the road, 45-23. Jim Harbaugh, again, for all the missteps, for the initial mediocrity when he first took over the Michigan program, the last 3 or 4 years, he has got this thing working, fine-tuned, and I thought, really, him flirting with the Minnesota Vikings basically right around National Signing Day this past offseason. I thought that was the death knell. I thought that was it. I thought Michigan was done. Why would a kid commit to playing for a coach who didn't seem like he was committed? They turned out stronger and better for it. 45-23 again, the final score. Ohio State does not own Michigan anymore. So now Ohio State sits on the outside of the CFP rankings looking in, hoping, like I said, USC stumbles, TCU stumbles. That's their only hope the Buckeyes have to getting in. Now, USC had a huge game at home against Notre Dame, who was playing very well. I thought Notre Dame would keep their roll going. USC, though, proves me wrong. 38-27. The Trojans beat the Fighting Irish, so USC now just has to get past Utah in Las Vegas Friday night. Teams that stumbled: Oregon losing to Oregon State 38-34, destroying their hopes for a shot, a possible shot at getting into the Final Four. Clemson losing at home to South Carolina 31-30. I have told you guys for the last 2 years, DJ Uiagalelei is not a great quarterback, and he is part of the problem with that team. Is Dabo Swinney's committed to him? He's not Trevor Lawrence. He's not Deshaun Watson. And that's why they stumble. Now, the defense is weakened as well, obviously. If they had a great defense, they wouldn't have let up 31 points to South Carolina, especially when they were favored by 2 touchdowns. But Clemson now, again, out. Second straight year where they have been knocked out of the Final Four picture. So, what does that leave us for championship week? We are picking every game this weekend. Yes, there is one game, of course, that is not a championship game, but we're going to pick it anyway, so deal with it. Friday, December the 2nd, Akron at Buffalo. Buffalo favored by almost 2 touchdowns. Everybody except Nick taking Buffalo. Nick is predicting the big upset, and he is taking Akron. Then we get into the championship games. North Texas at number 23, UTSA. Texas San Antonio. Now that point spread has come down a bit, but it's still, as I set this up, it was 8 points. UTSA ranked. They've garnered some respect here at the end of the season. Everybody taking UTSA. Then, of course, we get to the big boys, the Power Five. We mentioned Friday night, the Pac-12 championship. Number 12, Utah at number 4, USC. You get the Heisman Trophy favorite for the Trojans. Utah is a good team, a really good team. I just think Lincoln Riley, there was a reason he was brought in. And finally, USC, like other programs, we talked about Nebraska. Florida State looks like finally maybe they've found their coach. Florida still looking for their coach. The Miami Hurricanes still looking for their head coach. I know Mario Cristobal is going to be with the Hurricanes for at least another couple years, but he's going to have to turn things around. I didn't even get a chance to talk about my beloved Hurricanes because their season was so abysmal. Losing to Pittsburgh 42-16 to end the year, 5-7, not bowl eligible, an embarrassment. But I digress. Lincoln Riley looks like a good fit for the Trojans. I was impressed with the way they handled Notre Dame. I think USC wins in Las Vegas and beats Utah. 6 of our 8 panelists agree. Jen and Aaron go with the Utes. Then we get to Saturday, the Big 12 championship, number 13 Kansas State at number 3 TCU. The thing that scares me about this game is that when they met earlier this season, Kansas State jumped out to a massive, I believe, 28-10 lead against TCU, and TCU had to come roaring back to win that game. Of course, TCU had to hold off Baylor last week. TCU will make it interesting. They always do. But I believe that TCU will win this thing. They will represent the Big 12 in the Final Four in the CFP. The entire panel agrees, everybody taking TCU, but I will just say this. This game scares me. I think this one, out of all 4 championship games involving the top 4 CFP teams, this is the one where I could see the upset the most. Toledo at Ohio. Point spread has been dropping on this for Toledo. This game is now within 2 points. Everything I read tells me Ohio's got momentum. Ohio's on a roll. I'm taking Ohio. So is Doug. So is Aaron. The other 5 panelists go with Toledo. Coastal Carolina at Troy. I've tried to believe in Coastal Carolina a couple times this year, and they've burned me. No more. Point spread has been going up for Troy, reaching double digits. Everybody taking Troy except for Jen. She's picking the upset. She goes with Coastal Carolina. Number 11, LSU, and number 1, Georgia. SEC Championship. If LSU hadn't stumbled late, maybe I would have a little more faith of the possibility of an upset. But I just don't see it happening. Georgia's too strong. The entire panel takes Georgia. Number 22, UCF at number 18, Tulane. I've been impressed with Tulane all year. They're solid. They haven't let me down when I've picked them for the most part. Whereas UCF has. I think Tulane's balanced on both sides of the ball. Most of the panel agrees with me. 7 of the 8 panelists take Tulane. The one dissenter is Nick. Nick goes with UCF. Fresno State at Boise State. This is not an easy game to pick. But This is one of those championship games that goes to the home team. They're actually playing on the blue field. So Boise has the home field advantage. That's what I'm going with. Most of the panel agrees. 6 of the 8 of us are taking Boise State at home. Fresno State for Jen and for Doug. The Big Ten championship. Of course, we've talked in years past about the imbalance of the divisions in the Big Ten. And here's another example of it. You've got one side completely loaded with Michigan and Ohio State and Penn State. And then the other side usually is Wisconsin. This year is Purdue. There's just a huge disparity of talent between these two divisions. And this is why all the power conferences, all the conferences should get rid of divisions and just take the top 2 teams. Because I'm sorry, Purdue is not going to be able to hang with Michigan. Although we have one panelist dissenting. Jen is going to go with the Boilermakers in a massive, massive upset. I did want to note, by the way, we talked about it, ratings for football, American football, in the NFL segment, talking about how that Giants-Dallas Cowboys game on Thanksgiving drew a massive 42 million viewers. Let's not forget the college game is very, very popular as well. Noon kickoff on Saturday last weekend. Michigan, Ohio State, 17 million viewers. A record for Fox for any regular season college football game ever. And in terms of all the broadcast networks, all the networks that carry college football, that 17 million number was the biggest in 11 years for any network. So once again, proof that our football, American football, still reigns supreme. Finally, the last championship game wrapping things up Saturday night, December the 3rd, is the ACC championship. Now, the ACC is going to get shut out when it comes to the college football playoff this year. Clemson cannot make it in. It would take too much. I mean, it would take cats and dogs and monkeys and skunks raining down from the skies. Number 10, Clemson, plays number 24, North Carolina. I've already talked about my misgivings about DJ Uiagalelei as the head leader for the offense, the quarterback. He's been very disappointing in his tenure as the offensive leader for Clemson. That being said, North Carolina has no defense. No defense whatsoever. Clemson should be able to outscore North Carolina because even though Clemson's defense is not as strong as it has been in the past, it's still worlds better than what North Carolina has. 6 of the 8 panelists here on Sports Frenzy 2.0 agree, and they're taking Clemson. Jen and Doug picking the upset, going with the Tar Heels. So that'll do it for segment 2, your college football wrap-up. Of course, next week, we will break down the results of championship weekend. We'll know, for the most part, hopefully, who is in and who is out. Like I said, the worst possible scenario is if USC and or TCU lose. What do we get? Do we get Ohio State backing in? If both lose, do we get Alabama backing in? If we get Alabama, Ohio State, Michigan, and Georgia again, I'm done. I'm done with college football. You've got to change this thing up once in a while. You've got to stop rewarding teams like Ohio State and Alabama for not even making it to their conference championships. TCU should still make it into the Final Four, even if they get beat by Kansas State. They'll only have one loss. Alabama has 2 losses. We'll get more into that if that scenario plays out next time. Next Thursday morning on Sports Frenzy 2.0. We've got one more segment left. Got to talk a little baseball. We have got, of course, dumbasses in the world of sports to rip apart, and a couple of significant moments of silence. So stay tuned for a quick final segment here with the Maestro. I will be right back. Feeling mildly fatigued? Need a day off even if you just took one a few days ago? Make $30 million a year but just don't want to work for it? You need to join the NBA Load Management Club right now. When they're not napping or texting, guest lecturers Anthony Davis and Kyrie Irving will describe foolproof ways to earn tens of thousands of dollars by not doing anything. Sports Frenzy 2.0, available on Spotify, Google, Radio Public, Pocket Casts, and wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts, is currently negotiating with LeBron James to bring his popular How to Make the Hall of Fame Without Really Trying webinar live and in person to the Load Management Club. Thanks again to Sports Frenzy 2.0 and all you apathetic fans out there for making us a success. All right, everybody, time to get things wrapped up here on Sports Frenzy 2.0. A little bit late this week, recording here Thursday night, December the 1st. I'm the Maestro, Kevin Crane. Holidays, concerts have got me flying solo for one more week, but the Conquistador will be back next week. Miscellaneous sports tidbits and news. Of course, baseball. Winter meetings are coming up, and that's where we expect a lot of movement when it comes to free agent signings. Aaron Judge should be signing here or figuring out where he's going to sign in the next week or two. Supposedly the Yankees have got an offer on the table for him. 8 years, $300 million. I don't think that's going to do it. I think he's going to need at least $320 million. It's going to boil down to where he wants to play, because I think the San Francisco Giants will overpay to keep him away from the Yankees, to bring him back home to the West Coast. The Giants, of course, have a lot of money to spend, a lot of room under the luxury tax threshold. He would be an absolute boon for that team to revitalize it. Now, again, they have not been a bad team. 2 years ago, best record in baseball. Now, they fell short this past season. Does he want to become a Yankee legend? Is that more important to him if he takes a little bit of a pay cut, a little bit less money? Are the Yankees being frugal? I personally, since I despise the Yankees with a passion, would love to see him go to the Giants. I don't want him to go to the Dodgers, though. If I had my choice, I'd rather have him stay with the Yankees, as much as I hate the Yankees, because at least he's staying with the team that brought him up. I'm all for loyalty in that respect. I don't like mercenaries. You guys know how I feel about guys like LeBron James. But the rumors are heating up. Jacob deGrom, the fragile yet dominant ace for the New York Mets. Texas Rangers, I've heard, believe it or not, I've heard the Tampa Bay Rays might actually try to make a big splash. Again, bring a player back to his home state. DeGrom is from Florida. Sorry, New York fans, but when it comes to baseball, you guys are so arrogant and so entitled that I would just love to see Aaron Judge and Jacob deGrom go anywhere other than back to the Mets and the Yankees. Stop acting like you're entitled to have great baseball teams. Suffer like the rest of us have to, with occasional success. Another team that's been rumored to possibly be in the mix for Jacob deGrom is the Mets' division rival, the Philadelphia Phillies. I've also heard them mentioned for Trey Turner, but they're going to have to deal for at least the first half of the 2023 season without Bryce Harper. He had Tommy John surgery on his elbow. Looks like he will miss the first half of next season. But it looks like Phillies management is going for it. Their ownership is going for it. Now, in my opinion, they need deGrom. They need a pitcher more than they really need a bat like Trey Turner. So let's leave Trey Turner for the Cubs, okay? Huh. Huh. Yeah. Chicago Cubs are snowing us. Cubs fans, like they have been doing the last few years, the Ricketts family does not want to spend money. They are turning cheap. They're not going to bring in Carlos Correa. They're not bringing in Trey Turner. They're not bringing in any big-name free agents. And I hope the Marquee Network fails miserably. Ever since the Purge, where they got rid of Rizzo and Bryant and Baez and Schwarber, I have hated the Ricketts because there was no need for that. Look at what Kyle Schwarber is doing with the Phillies right now. Baez, yes. Bryant, yes. Those were two players you should have gotten rid of. You never should have let Rizzo go. You never should have let Schwarber go. You had the money. There's no reason to claim poverty. And we'll see what they do with Wilson Contreras here this offseason. It would be nice to see them bring him back. Now, Dave's White Sox, as we were driving to the Steel Panther show last night, we listened to the score out of Chicago, talking a lot about the White Sox. Of course, former MVP Jose Abreu is now gone. He is heading to the Astros on a 3-year deal, just short of $20 million per year. Oh, but the White Sox bring in Mike Clevinger, mediocre pitcher, for $12 million a year. Again, the economics of baseball boggle my mind. See, I think bringing in Jose Abreu for under $20 million a year is brilliant on the part of the Astros. And it sounds like White Sox fans out of Chicago are not happy with the Clevinger signing as opposed to letting Abreu go. And I can completely understand it. Because I'm a Cubs fan, so I understand when your team, what's the old saying? Tries to sell you shit and tell you it's Shinola. That goes all the way back, I believe, to the Depression era. So many teams in professional sports do that. They try to convince you that they just made the greatest move in the world to upgrade your team when you, as a knowledgeable sports fan, know that they're blowing smoke up your ass. Interesting move by the Toronto Blue Jays. They've pretty much undercut their manager by bringing in Don Mattingly as a bench coach. So you want to tell me that if the Blue Jays underperform, yes, I know they made the playoffs, but that team was supposed to be a contender for the World Series, and they went out meekly early in the playoffs. So you're telling me that if they underperform again, having Don Mattingly, a proven manager with the Dodgers and the Marlins, sitting on the bench, hovering over you, you know damn well that the minute the Blue Jays start to go on a losing streak in 2023, Don Mattingly's taking over as the manager of that team. Not a very comfortable place to be right now, the manager of the Toronto Blue Jays. And then finally in baseball, first ballot Hall of Famer Miguel Cabrera of the Detroit Tigers officially confirms that this is his last year coming up in 2023. He will retire after the 2023 season. At least they had success early on in his career, because it's just a shame that he's been wallowing in misery in Detroit for as long as he has here at the end of his career. And initially I thought, well, maybe like Albert Pujols, he'll get traded and get some success with his old team. But then I thought, whoops, he's never left his original team like Pujols did. So, yeah, not going to happen for Miguel Cabrera. He's going to be stuck through another torturous year, his last year in 2023 with the Detroit Tigers. NCAA basketball, congratulations to Houston, getting back to the number one slot in the AP poll for the first time since 1983. Yes, almost 40 years. Yes, I can do math real good. Of course, that probably goes back to the era of Phi Slamma Jamma, Clyde Drexler, and Akeem Olajuwon. So congrats again to Houston. Number one in the AP poll for the first time in decades. On the NHL front, I'll let the Blackhawks sit and stew for Dave for next week because I know they are backsliding badly and they're reversing course after a good start and becoming one of the worst teams again in the West. But we should send out thoughts and prayers to Chris Letang of the Pittsburgh Penguins, multiple All-Pro, All-Star, suffering his second stroke of his career. I don't know if you want to say something positive about the advances in medical science or how an athlete knows his or her body. But Letang basically said, this is not a big deal. This is not as life-altering as the first stroke. I believe he had that 8 years ago. He says he'll be fine, he'll get over it, and he'll be back and playing again in no time. So that will lead us into our moments of silence for this week on Sports Frenzy. Legendary pitcher Gaylord Perry has passed away. I'm not trying to speak ill of the dead, but Gaylord Perry, kind of like Bert Blyleven, I admire the fact, let's put it this way, I admire the fact that they pitched as many innings as possible, as often as possible, when they were called upon back in the old school days of baseball in the 70s and the 80s. You could say they were compilers, but that's fine. You could depend on them. Nolan Ryan was technically a compiler, just with a great fastball. But their numbers, if you look at them, were not overwhelming. Yes, I know Gaylord Perry did win the Cy Young twice. But Gaylord Perry was never an overly dominant pitcher. But I would rather have a guy like Gaylord Perry on my staff than a guy like Jacob deGrom. Because number one, I could depend on Gaylord Perry. He didn't whine, he didn't cry, he didn't complain about every little tweak or every little twinge that he felt. He would be dependable. He would go out each and every 5 days to start for my team. So in that respect, I do look up to guys like Gaylord Perry and Bert Blyleven. They were dependable. They were trustworthy. But they were never dominant. And I think you really need to have a dominant pitcher to get all the way to the World Series and win the World Series. You need a Justin Verlander. You need a Max Scherzer. With that being said, thoughts and prayers to the family and friends of the great Gaylord Perry. And then another old school athlete, John Hadl, passed away here within the last day or two. Noted quarterback for the San Diego Chargers and the LA Rams, among other teams. John Hadl is one of those guys that, if you're not my age, if you're not in your 50s or 60s, you really probably don't know who he is. But he was one of those old school guys who bridged the gap between the AFL and then the merger into the NFL. Very good quarterback. Thoughts and prayers to the family and friends of John Hadl. So, of course, to wrap up Sports Frenzy 2.0, it is time to pivot into our favorite segment each and every week, where we get to rant and rave about the stupidity of the modern athlete. It is time for the Red Foreman dumbasses of the week. Let's start off with OBJ, Odell Beckham Jr. Now, there's conflicting reports whether or not this was really his fault or not. Was it an overreaction on the part of a flight attendant? But if I had millions of dollars on the line as I'm healing up from an injury and I'm a free agent and I know there's going to be teams out there that want to bring me in mid-December when I'm cleared to play, I am going to do everything I possibly can to walk the straight and narrow so I don't jeopardize my chances at that big paycheck and that chance to win another Super Bowl ring. Oh, but we're not OBJ, are we? Supposedly, on a plane, Odell Beckham Jr. was told multiple times to fasten his seatbelt. Believe he had a pillow or a blanket over his face, acting erratic, acting strange, would not buckle his seatbelt. He claimed it was because he was asleep. He didn't hear the first request or two from the flight attendants. And it got to the point where they said, either you leave the plane or we're going to have to take everybody off the plane and inconvenience everybody on this plane because you are going to exceed the boundaries of what we would consider an acceptable problem. And of course, we all know since 9/11 how very tricky it is to manage and handle passengers on an airplane. So, of course, OBJ ends up being the focal point of this whole mess because he simply would not buckle his seatbelt. Now, of course, somebody stupid like Jerry Jones, we'll have more on him next week because we're going to need a lot of time to talk about LeBron James and how he's comparing Jerry Jones to Kyrie Irving, and we need a lot more time to delve into that, and Dave and I will do that next week. But Jerry Jones will be more than happy to take on OBJ if it means yet another desperate attempt to win a Super Bowl or even get to a Super Bowl without Jimmy Johnson. But in the end, anybody who flies, anybody who travels knows what a pain in the ass a problem passenger can be for the entire plane. So the prima donna, idiot, dumbass, OBJ, Odell Beckham Jr. gets called out this week. Lamar Odom, we know he's had issues. He's had problems linked to the Kardashians, drug abuse. maybe Lamar Odom would just be better off staying out of the spotlight and keeping quiet and getting his life together, or keeping it together. But of course, Lamar Odom had to come out, as all stupid athletic celebrities have to do, and run their mouths and sound like complete and total uneducated winebag idiots. Lamar Odom, on a podcast recently, said the Phoenix Suns mascot, which has been around since 1980, which happens to be a gorilla, is racist. So now what? Any monkey, any primate is racist? Again, this mascot has been around for over 50 years. 40 years. Again, I swear to God, I'm really good at math. Over 40 years, the Phoenix Suns mascot, this gorilla, has been around. But now it's racist. Now it's racist. Is this piling on to the issues with the owner who's trying to sell the team because he was an idiot, he was a dumbass, he said unforgivable things, he did unforgivable things. And again, I'm going to say what I always say, as politically incorrect as it is, especially when it comes to the NBA, you don't let the inmates run the asylum. The players are not all PhDs in sociology, race relations, political science. They are no smarter than you and me. And Lamar Odom just gives us another example of how, for the most part, they're just loudmouth dumbasses. Now, shame on CBS Sports commentators Chris Walker and Chick Hernandez. Shame on them. We know Native American names, especially ones that honor their heritage. The names are very, I don't want to say interesting. I'm not trying to denigrate or disparage them, but they link to animals. They link to parts of nature. They pay tribute to their heritage. And you should never have anything but respect for the Native Americans. Whether you find their names, their traditional names, odd or funny. But Chris Walker and Chick Hernandez, during a recent Wichita State basketball broadcast, decided to make fun of Isaiah Poor Bear Chandler and his name, calling him Pooh Bear multiple times. It's disgusting to me. That's disgusting. For all of the bells and whistles and all of the stopgap measures we put in and cancel culture out there, the threat of cancel culture, standards that these broadcast networks put into place, overbearing sometimes, woke standards to keep these broadcasters from being their own worst enemy, we still get stupidity like this. Chris Walker and Chick Hernandez are the worst kind of dumbasses for making fun of a Native American name. I hope they gave a formal apology to Isaiah Poor Bear Chandler, the Wichita State basketball player, because Walker and Hernandez are a couple of dumbasses. Now, finally, we go to one of our prime candidates for Dumbass of the Year 2022. That would be one Rory McIlroy. Yes, I hate Rory McIlroy, especially here over the past year, especially how he's decided to take on the Live Golf Upstart League, challenging the PGA. But not only that, and the hypocrisy of him being quote unquote upset about Live Golf when all it's done is diminish and dilute the field in the PGA so he can win more. Wink, wink, nod, nod. Rory McIlroy ends up having easier time making more money because of Live Golf, but is outraged by its existence. Well, of course, we've also talked about the fact that all of a sudden he's best buddies with Tiger Woods. Tiger and I were inseparable. Let me tell you about my best friend. Yes, old school courtship of Eddie's father. Terrible singing. Deal with it. Of course, those two, Tiger and Rory, are going to be teamed up together in the latest edition of The Match. I believe this is the 7th, where they're going to play Jordan Spieth and Justin Thomas. Of course, Justin Thomas, another Tiger Woods sycophant. And of course, Tiger had to drop out of the Hero World Challenge, which he created, because he's got plantar fasciitis. Oh my God, poor Tiger. Again, Tiger Woods created 90% of his own problems. But now Rory McIlroy tries to make excuses for Tiger Woods missing the cut at last year's British Open, or this past British Open, I should say, claiming that he gave Tiger Woods COVID. Even though I believe Rory McIlroy was still well enough to finish in the top 3 at the British Open. But of course, Tiger missed the cut, and it was all Rory's fault because Rory gave Tiger COVID. So that's another reason why Tiger didn't play as well as he should, because Tiger Woods should win every match ever. Bullshit. Rory, crawl out of Tiger Woods' ass, be a man, stop being a dumbass. That's it for Sports Frenzy. I'm the Maestro. Check out the weekend edition this coming Saturday morning. Next week, Dave comes back. We will see you then.